Okay, that'll work. The phones were messed up. Yeah, I just had to unplug mine.
Good morning, policy and governance. Now being a little after 10, we'll get call order. Roll call. D1, D2, and D3 are represented. Entertain a motion for approval of minutes of October 18th.
Second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And float down here a little bit. Let's start with discussion and possible action regarding November BOCC Employees of the Month. I have a motion to receive these documents.
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
We have 3 people nominated this month, option A, B, and C, and we just need to choose 2 for the month of November.
C. If you don't have them, you'd like to recommend.
Okay, I heard option A and option C. Entertain a motion for those 2 candidates
Yes.
with option B move forward to the next month.
Yes, sir.
All right, that's the motion. And I'll second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Karen. And then your item 8, let me get a screen out of the way here, regarding Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration entry-level driver training program.
Thank you, JK. Motion to receive the documents?
I have a motion second to receive these documents. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
It's a thick packet, but don't let it scare you. The front page is really the key points I wanted to bring to your attention today. As you know, the Federal Motor Carriers put this into effect back in February, that we have to do additional training for any of our staff to become CDL licensed truck drivers. The main part of our work group that this is going to influence is our yards and possibly treasurer resale. There's lots of information. I've tried to combine it a little bit for you. We've talked to Dale Frick. We thought he might be interested in doing some training on it, being he's out of Echo. He didn't sound too positive about wanting to do that. And if he did, he would only do the theory part. We'd have to have somebody do the training part, possibly out at the sheriff's training trail. Another option, am I going too fast? I'll slow down. The other option is the online courses for the theory, which is anywhere from $300 to $500 per person. Employees would do that at their own pace. Plus, we would have to find somebody to do the driving part for them. We called Payne County, the commissioners, to see what they were doing. They are actually using the Central Technology Center in Stillwater for the training, and it's $4,500 per person. But that includes the theory and the driving part. City of Oklahoma City, they have their own trainers who are willing to do training on the theory. The downside of that, they can only do it at night from 6 to 9 and on 5:30 to 10 p.m. and Saturdays and Sundays. More Norman Technology, again, they can do the total package, $4,800 per employee. The other thing is only hire staff in the future that already have their CDLs, which can be costly because people that already have a CDL, they've had to pay for this training themselves, so they're probably going to look for a higher rate of pay. And as you'll see, I looked at Brahms, that's what they're paying. Budweiser is what they're paying. CDL. And Oklahoma City is paying $232,000 a year for a starting CDL that already has a CDL.
What is our starting pay?
It really depends on the experience. It's about probably $3,000 a month or less, $2,700, $3,000.
Oklahoma City's at what rate, or are they willing to,
They're at 30. They're entry level because they do only pay grades.
not their pay, their
Their-
training cost?
Their training costs. They did not give us an exact cost because this lady would be doing it at night and on the weekends at additional. And if we were interested, she would come back and give us a price to do the city of Oklahoma City.
So we're not sitting in with their staff,
No,
this additional class
Yes.
training for
Yes.
county.
because they have 3 different trainers. They have this woman that's qualified to do it. They have a former road trainer, and they will be doing it during the day for all the Oklahoma City staff people that need their CDLs. We have talked about an option that, as on here, I said there's an online course for the theory part. And if we were able to hire somebody, which has recently applied, we had a candidate that applied, and she's actually certified to teach the driving part. She worked for a trucking company and became certified to do that. So that's an option for us to look at as well if we wanted them to do the online training in theory, and then maybe hire somebody to help with that part on the driving. I don't know that we'd want to put them under any one district, but maybe we could put them into a position where they could do a lot more than just that part of the training and maybe do other training pieces.
And countywide, how many people are we waiting to train at this point?
We haven't done a lot of hiring in the past 6 months, but I'm guessing we probably have at least 2 to 3 at each district. Not District 2 so much, but we know how things change overnight.
KK, it's interesting that you would mention potentially the county hiring someone to do this, because I had made that note here. In the event we were to explore that opportunity, it would seem one of the ways that we could help offset that additional cost is by offering this training to other entities. Is that something that you think would be feasible?
It would be a way for us to bring in funding, yes.
And
Especially my thought on that a little bit, Joe, is the smaller counties. You know, we got Canadian County, we got Caddo County. Those smaller counties are going to have somewhere to go that's a little more affordable for the training. So if we were able to offer that, and it's an agreement that we could legally do it, I don't think there would be a problem finding people willing to send their people here to do the training.
right, we wouldn't need to make an exorbitant amount. We just need to
Offset the cost.
employee salary benefits and then any materials that would be provided
Needed,
or
correct.
necessary. Fuel,
Yes.
et cetera, if they're driving
Yes.
our trucks. Okay.
With
I like that. A couple other questions. If we look at another method, for instance, VOTEC, et cetera, we could, because that's part of their job, right, that would be eligible for the county to pay on that individual's behalf. So we're not talking about someone being out of pocket, correct?
Correct. We would, like for Moore Norman, theirs is, we would pay the employee, it's 80 hours, so they'd have to get onto class for 2 weeks. So we would be paying their salary for the 2 weeks, and then we'd be paying the approximately $5,000 for them to do the training. We talked about maybe even trying to do an agreement where they'd have to stay with the county after we provided the training for a reasonable amount of time.
That was my next question, because
Yes.
when we do, I think, our tuition reimbursement, isn't there some aspect of continued service
Yes.
in that? So we would,
And they have to be here. I mean, that's something we could look at as well on this. If we were going to do that, somebody may have to come in and work a year as a laborer for them to be eligible to be paid to go to the CDL school, and let them, invest in the county a little bit and find out the piece of it before we sent them. And then some sort of agreement to keep them afterwards after we provided the training.
yeah, and with regard to just hiring staff that already have CDLs, I think one of the means of progression, at least at District 1, is the opportunity to obtain your CDL as a step up.
That's right.
And I would hate to disincentivize.
Right. I like that, it's because it's part of the professional development. When we bring in people that come in as laborers and think they want to do yard work as a career, then we provide them that we'll send them for training to do the truck driving, or we send them up to LTAP to learn about how to build roads, etc. So again, I think it's a little bit of showing investment into those employees for the professional development side.
How soon are you needing some kind of direction on this? Because I would like to see you at least explore the possibility of us bringing someone on and how that might work.
I have emailed with this candidate that is certified to do the driving part. She will be available for an interview. We'll probably do it right after Thanksgiving. I would like to bring her in and talk to her about it and see what her possible training skills are.
Would it make sense that this position would be housed within your department?
If that was agreeable with everyone. I mean, it's a training, and training is part of an HR
Okay.
responsibility. But we probably should try to set a deadline as to when we decide what we want to do. We're getting ready to get the winter months. I think right now we're okay for our CDL drivers, but as we continue to go in the future, we're probably going to need to be hiring and getting some people trained for the CDLs.
Are there, you know, how some professions have continuing education requirements? Are there continuing education for people that have CDLs, or is it just if they want to advance from one level of CDL to the other?
Yes.
Hazmat, endorsements, et cetera.
As far as the federal motor carriers go, you have to do this training that's in here to get your basic A. Then if you want to get your B, you have to do some additional training. And if you want to add endorsements onto there, you also have to do additional theory and driving training.
And in the event we were to go down the road of hiring someone to do that, they would be eligible to help with that as well?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct.
How much have we spent, like on an annual basis on CDL training to get people trained, or have we spent?
We haven't spent, most of the time it's been on the job. They'll come to work as a laborer, and they will work with some of our truck drivers, drive the trucks a little about the yard. We teach them how to do the pre-trips, and then they go and test to get their permit. And then they have to go and drive an allotted amount of time, and they're ready to go back and take their actual CDL written test and their CDL driver's test with the driving safety department, and that's how they get their CDLs. And then we reimburse them for the cost of the CDL licenses. But other than that, that's only formal training that we have done in the past for our CDLs.
How much in reimbursement have we spent?
I don't know off the top of my head. I think according to the city of Oklahoma City on hers, she says it's $80 and then $40, which would be $120. So approximately.
And for clarification though, Karen, that what you're describing is all prior to these new regulations coming into effect.
Correct.
Correct.
Yes.
It used to be easier if you want
Right.
to obtain a CDL.
Right. But now that these have come in, and that's why I included the core curriculum for you guys, if you want to read over it, for you make any decisions, as well as when we talk about, well, can anybody be a trainer? Well, you go in here and there's 7 pages of eligibility requirements to be a trainer for a CDL. So it's just not a stamp on the book and say, hey, you're a trainer, you've attended a 2-hour class. It's pretty complex, and if you look at the core curriculum, they cover everything. And again, it's to make our roads safer and hopefully.
And did you say that ACO is not going to offer
At this time, no.
So if we could get out in front of it, then perhaps we could even work with ACO
Yes,
to get the word out and some of those smaller areas that you were talking about.
correct. Yes, but this last time we talked to Dell, they didn't have anything in the works to be able to help with that.
All right, under the Moore Norman technology, 80 hours of classroom time,
Yes, sir.
and that's total $4,800.
Yes, sir.
And then there's additional driving time, which is,
That includes the driving time.
but totally 80 hours.
Yes, that's what they told us when they sent this information sheet to us on it.
And you said we might have 6 to 9 people in the whole county that may need training at this time?
It just varies. you know, sometimes, to be honest with you, we get laborers and people are happy being laborers, and there's nothing wrong with being a laborer if that's what you want to do. But most of the time, when we get, especially the younger people that we get in, they're wanting to come on and laborers and be the truck drivers. On the average, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 need their CDLs.
And then if this training person's under HR, then that income for that person is coming out of general fund?
Yes, that's how we're funded.
I guess as far as the districts go, between now and when a decision's made on this trainer, are there avenues on this sheet that we can still send people if we need to train them?
Yeah, I don't see the reason why we couldn't sign up with Moore Norman. I think the last time that we had communicated with them, they had a first class going on, and there were still 2 openings to attend that class, but that's been probably a month ago.
So they schedule one every so often and then
Yes,
fill it up.
it's kind of like the LTAP. When you're doing the LTAP program, you know, they set those classes up when you go, when you can send your staff to them.
All right, any other questions on this for Karen?
I'd like her to get back with us after exploring the possibility of bringing someone onto our staff to do this, and then reach out to other counties to help offset that cost. So,
Okay. Anything else?
and then depending on how this thing breaks, if we end up where we're paying for our employees to go to training some elsewhere, we would probably need to look at the handbook and making it crystal clear that there is some type of continued service or payback required.
Yeah, it would need to be put in the handbook as well.
So those 2 things, if you'll start,
Okay.
would be my ask.
Michael, anything else?
That should be a good start for you.
I think it's a good start.
Yeah.
Chelsea? Okay, thank you.
All right. Now we'll go back up on the agenda, and I guess item 4 will,
Give you a motion to receive her report.
did we? Oh, fair enough. I guess I need a motion, or I got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Best way to start this off is I think we do item 4, discussion and possible action regarding ARPA Consultant and Management Service Project Status Report. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you? Do you have our PowerPoint slides? All right, so today we are going to dig into a few open action items to start things off. So the first one up, we kind of worded these as if they were agenda items. In any case, so we're looking to, for number 1 there, sort of deactivate the internal ARPA request portal so that we can cut off those internal county requests that are coming in and start to turn that corner around to the external community engagement and public facing projects and proposals. Not that it couldn't be reactivated in the future if we decide to do that.
All right, let's go ahead and go through these items, and then if there's any more on your status report, we can, I think we'll have to use a different agenda item to take action on these.
Okay.
I think, Michael, to your point, item 3, we could address, it looks like 1, 2, 3, and 4, with number 5 coming under the previously approved project agenda item. Do you have anything else by way of project status report that?
No, I mean, nothing major to update in this meeting,
Nothing new
unless you have any
beyond what you
questions.
sent out on the weekend?
Correct, yeah.
All right.
Well, if we're ready to move on to another item to where we can actually take action on some of these items, or if you guys have any further status report you need to address.
Yeah, there are other agenda items that we could use to take these actions. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the same for the proposals that are pending.
Yeah,
to review.
we have that agenda item that would allow us to discuss projects that we previously approved. And then we have the agenda item that talks about pending projects.
Okay.
So, okay, then that being said, I'll make a motion to receive their report on item 4.
Okay.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Dice, which one we want to work under?
Well, Michael, if it's your pleasure to take up the first 4 items, those seem to be policy and procedure related.
Correct, yes.
So item
We
3.
could use item 3 there.
All right.
Okay. Apologies, I'm confusing the agenda items.
No, we're all right. We'll work through it. All right, item 1, simple request. You've been asking for it for a while. More or less deactivate internal portal, so no more projects come forward at this time. Any discussion or entertaining?
Yeah, if I could, what are your thoughts on, rather than just cutting it off immediately, setting a date a
Sure.
week or so in the future where you all can communicate to any of the departments to get in any last minute requests?
Yes, sure, that's reasonable.
So next Friday is what, the 8th, or this Friday is the 18th. So what date do you suggest? We've got the Thanksgiving holiday, so you want to go the Wednesday prior to the holiday?
Yeah, that would give us all
It'd
a
be the
week.
23rd, I believe.
The 23rd, yeah.
Okay, so I would make a motion that we would close the internal portal effective November 23rd with notice to our departments so that they could get any pending requests that they might be working on in by that date.
Is that a motion?
Oh, I forgot to put the button. Sorry, Chelsea.
Second.
All right, I have a motion second to close the portal effective 23 November. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay, number 2 here is about turning that corner to start to develop our process and mechanisms for intaking external ARPA requests. And this might look something similar to the internal portal that we had where it's available on the county website or something to that effect. TBD, just looking for direction here of if y'all have any preferences as far as that goes, and can we start working with county IT toward that end?
To that, we should have perhaps a template because we did do something like this for our CARES.
Okay.
We had, so IT should be able to help you there. With regard to the timeline that you at least have up there, I'd like to get started with IT, but I'd like to move this timeline up a month. So we have it out in February. I really want to speed up the process of getting into the community.
Okay, we'll look into that, and if we can repurpose the mechanism you previously used, that could help accelerate this.
So can you update us? When's our next meeting?
December 20th,
Our luck.
unless you want to recess till tomorrow.
Okay. I might want to do that, but I'd like to get some things ironed out here. Yeah, I'd like that to be ready for our approval. I mean, that's a month at the December meeting, assuming we wouldn't move quicker. But, okay. So for the purposes of 2, how about we instruct you to begin working with IT on the development of that survey with the possibility that we speed the timeline up? Is that sufficient for you?
Yes.
Y'all good with that?
Second.
Motion is second on the floor. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay, number 3 is getting into the community engagement survey that we plan to have posted to the county website. Shared a copy of a draft version with you, and we've had some conversations on that so far. Just thinking through revisions and the ultimate adoption by this group to go ahead and move forward with that.
So I think we had discussed prior to the meeting possibly tabling this and recessing and coming back on Thursday to look at the different categories for 6, either changing the structure or leaving it open-ended.
And by prior to the meeting, you're referring to our individual meetings with them.
Yes.
There's the one, as I mentioned to you just prior, that I think we should consider removing is the broadband.
Mhm.
I believe the state of Oklahoma received hundreds of millions of dollars and is really taking the lead on that. So I don't notice anything here really about infrastructure, water. I know that at least in District 1, we've had a lot of our smaller communities that need help with their water infrastructure. Perhaps that is a replacement, or if there's a capital item heading and then a drop-down menu there. However, you all, sounds like
Okay.
everybody is interested in some type of rework of 6.
Yes. Okay.
So I will motion that we work individually with you all to rework 6 and reconvene on Thursday after budget board.
Well, let's get to the end of the docket before we talk about recessing and what time frame.
Okay.
And then, but
Yeah.
what's your first part of your motion? Oh, work with them individually? Okay. Well,
And you said you're thinking 10:45 tomorrow if we recess?
Thursday.
Okay. Would that give you enough time to turn this around to us
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think so.
okay.
The changes you've
so we
requested.
can have
are-
ahead of?
Yeah.
Okay.
all right, so not to rain on your motion, but when are you guys leaving town?
Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, so in theory, at some point in time today, we'll recess this meeting till tomorrow. I think, I don't know, do they really need a motion to rework 6 if we're all in compliant, or all saying, work with the individual offices on how to change this survey, and we'll go from there.
Okay.
All right, so are you good with that?
Okay.
Okay.
And then number 4 is just to follow up to that, just to say, to give us direction to go ahead and work with county IT to get that deployed to the website once it's ready. The target being November 23rd for the purposes of the D1 community engagement session that's happening December 1st. So that's just from a timing perspective, we wanted it to be available in time for that session.
We can address that one tomorrow or whenever we come back as well.
Sure.
Is that fine?
Yeah.
And, okay, anything else under item 3 that we need to review?
Do you have anything else that you
No.
think fits under that heading? Okay.
All right, so we're ready to move to item 5.
I guess I would just ask if you had any additional thoughts or feedback to just get that to us as soon as possible, and we can work through it with y'all individually, like we said.
Okay.
All right, item 5, we're going to discuss possible action regarding proposed projects, programs.
Yeah, this item 5 is pertaining to the emergency management radio project in particular, and the way that we are structuring the agreement that we'll put in place between the county and the other jurisdictions who will be participating in this program. So there's a little bit of debate of do we structure it as a Danny is more familiar with this than I am, but do we structure this as a monthly or quarterly reimbursement type thing, or is it a lump sum that we give them for the full duration of the program?
Yeah, so the reason it can be structured in 2 different ways has to do specifically with the compliance piece of it. The way that the agreement is currently written and structured, the Emergency Management Office submitted for the radio proposal. Within that, they would like to cover the service agreement fees that each individual jurisdiction has to pay to Oklahoma City. So in one method, you would leave emergency management as the program administrator, and each individual jurisdiction per fiscal year, when they pay their service agreement fee, would then give the invoice to emergency management, and emergency management would then reimburse them for that invoice. So it's a direct payment to them based off the invoice. We know they've paid the service fee, and you would do that continuing to move forward. If there's a concern that the jurisdictions are not able to afford paying the service fees up front, and that's why they would need the dollars in hand or in pocket before being able to get reimbursed, then we would want to make each of the individual jurisdictions a contractor, so that we would have an agreement between each jurisdiction and emergency management, and it would state you're getting a lump sum of dollars for the next 4 to 5 fiscal years to pay for your service agreement fee. And if they fail to use the dollars in the appropriate manner, then it would be up to the county to take any form of legal action or action at all to recoup those dollars that would then have to be given back to the Treasury Department. So either way is doable. We're just looking for a direction from the P&G members on which method you would prefer to use, whether it would be the reimbursement method or the upfront lump sum.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. For housekeeping, if the clerk, this is actually for item 6 regarding approved projects. Is there any discussion in reference to invoicing?
Yes, please. My preference would be that our emergency management department is not the one that is making payments on behalf of these entities, that they receive the money and we do it up front. I think at least for a lot of the departments in the area that we represent, it's difficult and would be a burden on them to try to front fund this themselves, so that we do this in the form of a grant or however you want to term it. And we do that yearly prior to the commencement of that next FY, so that they can make these payments. Additionally, because we're doing this for, what is it, 3 years, 3.5 years approximately, the burden would be shifting to those entities to be able to come up with the payments in the future. And I'd like them in the habit of having to pay the bill, even though we're providing the money at first, so that they're well aware that they'll be on the hook. And I know Mr. Barnes and his staff have done a good job of making them aware, but that is my preference, that we provide them these funds up front, and that David and his staff are not responsible for paying those bills on their behalf.
Okay, so this is money we've already got approved. And so this would look like a grant coming out of emergency management to those entities. And they would agree to receive those dollars and then spend those dollars for licensing.
Yeah, they would be specific to the service agreement fee piece of the request. And I just want to be careful when we're saying grants that if they do misuse the funds, they would be required to send them back. So there would still be a requirement within that. And it would be written in the agreement that we have between the jurisdictions that if they were to misuse the funds or use them in a way that was not in the agreement, that they would owe those back to the county. So they can't just use them for other services.
And David, when is this anticipated to come online? Weren't we going for a go live date of January 1?
Yes, sir. We were tentatively looking at July 1, I think.
July 1.
I'm sorry, my mistake. January 1, 2023. There's going to be a couple things. I think they're going to delay that at least system-wide. We're scrambling as fast as we can to get programming templates and permissions and all those things in place. I know the consoles are a key piece, not only for us, but for the dispatch component, sheriff's office. And we've received information that those are not going to be available on January 1. They are in process, but that's going to be a bit of a hiccup too. Now, City of Oklahoma City, we've had multiple meetings with them, including discussions as recent as yesterday, and they are working with us quite well in regards to being able to provide that service. If in fact there is a gap or a time period there where some of the users can come online prior to formalization of the project, they're not going to be pushing us to fund for partial periods and all those kinds of things. They're showing extreme flexibility in coming online with this. I think we're going to be able to work that out. But tentatively, we're kind of using January 1 as a target date, although we know there are going to be certain components that are not going to be fully in place. I might add another comment too, and I appreciate your comments in regard to the grant aspect of this. One of the key things that we've maintained since the beginning of this project, as opposed to us paying the fees to the City of Oklahoma City or Oklahoma County paying those fees for the user jurisdictions, we think that having those jurisdictions receive a grant from us, I would like to see it for the entire period of the ARPA grant if we can, for simplicity's sake. But if we need to do it annually, we can work through that process. But I think it reinforces the customer/vendor relationship between the individual jurisdictions and the City of Oklahoma City, because we're looking at such intricacy and technology issues and lots of different things. It's going to be important that they maintain a strong working relationship between the two of those entities without us muddying the waters by standing in the middle. So I definitely encourage and recommend that it is direct payment from those jurisdictions based on funds that we provide in the grant format.
Is there anything in the guidance that would preclude us from giving them the 3 years up front?
No,
And then the burden is, as you were mentioning, the burden would be on them to spend it appropriately. Otherwise, they're paying us back.
right. It can be structured in any of these formats that we're discussing. And I will say our intent with the reimbursement piece would not be for the emergency management department to go pay each individual fee on behalf of the jurisdictions. We want the jurisdictions, as he's mentioned, to have those relationships. They would just then invoice to emergency management, so they could maintain those relationships as well. So I just wanted to make clarity on that we would encourage that those relationships between the jurisdiction and the city go forward, and then they would pay the fee, and then it would just be reimbursed internally, just to clarify on that. But yeah, any of it is doable. It just needs to be outlined in the agreement. The key here is making sure that everything is obligated by December 31st of 2024.
Okay, so given the difficulty of some of these jurisdictions to have funds on hand at times, I understand the reimbursement aspect. I didn't do a good job of speaking earlier, but my preference would be that we give them the money, whether it's a lump sum to cover the 3.5 year period, or we have to do it annually. That would be my preference. So that my motion would be to proceed in that direction in terms of a grant to be provided either as a lump sum to cover the entire period up to 3.5 years, or on an annual basis.
Second that?
All right, we have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And I'll abstain. All right. Anything else under, let me get my glasses on so I'm reading this right. Item 6, regarding approved projects or programs. Do we have any others besides the fact of the ones that were passed on special BOCC? We're going to come back next week and pass those projects specific so that each project is lined out with their actual amount plus the 20%.
Yeah, I don't believe there's any action for P&G's part in that. Correct.
And then any other items on approved projects?
I think we're clear.
All right, so we're going to move back to item 5. Proposed projects.
We do want to still talk through the compliance framework. Does that make sense on?
That could be item 3. It's a policy or procedure.
Policy and
correct?
process, yeah.
We could open item 3 again. Are there things on item 5 so that in your update that you were going to do, Danielle? Are there things that we need to deal?
Yeah,
Whatever your pleasure is.
Yeah, we'll work on 5.
Okay.
I'm just going to skip over the compliance framework. Okay, so there's been a little bit of discussion about creating the subrecipient bucket for the detention center specifically. They will go through the risk assessment and the things associated that will be required with the reporting piece of being a subrecipient. In order for the county clerk's office to appropriate the funds in the correct manner, what we need to do is roll the projects back into bucket 1415, which is y'all's top ARPA account, and then we need to roll them out again into a sub account for the subrecipient specifically. Currently, they went through, we've got some in a construction bucket, we've got some in a detention center specific bucket, but because the dollars will end up going directly to the detention center, we need to roll the items back and then re-push them forward in order to put them in the correct bucket now.
That makes really good sense, given that they're a separate entity. I'm assuming once whatever has been approved to date, I can't recall, that there would be an agreement. I think one of the things that the auditor hit us on with regard to our CARES was some of that documentation. So we'll get, you all help us get that addressed.
Yes. So in this action, all we'll be doing is moving what was already approved. That's in action 1. We have outlisted each of the projects. We'll roll them back and then we'll roll them forward. We are working directly with the detention center on the reimbursement piece of most of these things. Most all of these are reimbursements. So we are working with them on collecting that documentation and making sure that there's a process set up in place. And that's part of what that Shahzad will go over in the compliance framework when we talk about the subrecipient monitoring piece and then the risk assessments that are associated.
When you're talking about reimbursements, these are funds that they have expended directly out of their budgeted allocation or that the county has paid for out of our capital budget? A
The-
mixture of both?
Yeah, I had the note I got from their accountant indicated that it's quite difficult once it comes into their account to know specifically where it fell back from. So drawing the direct dollars back, we had some difficulty doing. But yes, all of these would be direct reimbursements. They would go to the detention center at this point.
Once the agreement is in place.
Correct.
And that's going to be, the agreement draft language is in the compliance section of today's presentation.
Yes, we can go over the parts of the MOU with that as well.
All right, so these were all items we've already moved through P&G, and then we moved through BOCC, and they're down in various funds and the ARPA dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And you're asking us to recommend we take, in essence, move them back to 1413 and prep them for when the agreement's ready, and then we trigger that to be written as a check.
Mm-hmm. So I think they'll go back to 1415 is the overall account. So the total dollar amount for these projects will roll back into 1415. But in action 2, we would recommend these projects moving forward, so we know that those dollars are earmarked for these specific detention center projects. And then yes, once the MOU and risk assessment are complete, then they could be reimbursed through a check from the county.
And on some of those items, does that include that 20% we did in the lump sum a couple weeks ago?
So I do have all of the projects laid out. So if y'all want to go through a quick review, we certainly can. This was for the heat and air system at the detention center. It was authorized back in August. This was the roof replacement. It does include the 20% increase. This is the loading dock. It also includes the 20% increase. The metal roof ceiling includes a 20% increase. The systems upgrade includes pennies that weren't originally on it. And then the COVID-19 testing includes some pennies that weren't originally on it as well. Same with PPE. This was for the quarantine pod, the fingerprint scanner.
May I interrupt you for a
Yeah,
second? Because
absolutely.
I'm somewhat confused, and maybe Dale can help. The HVAC, some of these were requests that were approved, and the payment is from ARPA funds,
Yes.
correct? And those funds have not been transferred to business
Correct.
institute yet. So that is not a reimbursement. That would be,
Yeah, so some of so this one, as you can see, it's not checked off as a reimbursement. All of the
Right, okay.
PPE requests are reimbursement requests.
all right.
So this one would not be a reimbursement. The roof replacement, loading docks would not be a reimbursement. The systems upgrade is a partial reimbursement. COVID
Yeah,
testing.
So where
all
I'm
of
going
this.
with this is, you all haven't started any of these projects because the funds haven't been received. And going forward, you'll be responsible for making sure that the contracting is done in accordance with federal law. Otherwise, you're paying us back, and all that'll be laid out in the piece that you're going to discuss with us here in a bit.
Yes, and,
Yep.
and we've talked with them about that as well.
Okay, all right. So they're not all reimbursements.
Not all.
Okay.
Question I have is the $2.1 million didn't have a 20% increase on it.
Well, with regard to any of the 20%, that would be for cost overruns, correct? For change orders. My preference would be that we would set aside a pool of money and not give that to you all until you've actually presented documentation. Yeah. I think we should consider setting aside the sum, but we shouldn't deliver it. Otherwise, it doesn't come back.
I understand that. I'm fine with that. I just want to make for sure that if it does come in 20% higher, then we have something to talk about.
Yeah. So I think what we could do in that regard is whatever that total amount ends up being,
Mhm.
perhaps set aside 20% to hold here in the event that they have contingencies on any of those projects that we could send at a specific time. But I don't think, at least I'm not comfortable sending over 20%, and we don't know that it's going to be needed. And then we have to ask for it back. Thanks for clearing that up for me.
All right, so for this item, we're looking for a recommendation to move all these projects back into 14-15
Mm-hmm.
with anticipation of once the agreement's passed, then we'll move forward as a subrecipient. All right, any,
Do we actually need two buckets, one for actual reimbursements and one for just a transfer of funds?
In the
Does it matter to you?
In the subrecipient piece, you can do it as one.
Okay.
It shouldn't matter.
Right.
entertain a motion to establish that.
I will move that these projects be moved back to 1413. Do I need to add the second part? Once the MOU is established, be transferred to the jail after that.
And just to confirm, which fund is it?
The subrecipient account will need to be created, so that'll have to go through the budget board process, I believe. These will roll back to 14-15, and then we will have to create the subrecipient account. So I don't have a number for that just
All
yet.
right, correct.
Do you happen to know if this was this creation of this item was contemplated prior to the budget board agenda being posted? Because we still have some time, if you can.
We have talked with the clerk's office. We weren't sure. We thought that it might have to go through BOCC first and then to budget board. If not, then we can certainly work with them to get it on budget board. These are all projects that have been previously recommended by P&G and authorized by budget board or by BOCC, and the dollar amounts are not changing. It's just a change in process, moving them out, moving them to a new place.
Now those are, I would think would be all right with, because we're just pulling it up from the department bucket that was created and we're moving it back up to the general ARPA bucket. So if there's time to put it on the budget board,
Yeah, it would seem we would need both actions on the budget board, right? One, to move it back into that. It's in a general pool now, or it's been sub-allocated already?
It is sub-allocated, but we actually did write it out as if we were going to have to do it at BOCC, similar to this, like moving it once and then moving it again. So we can submit that language to the clerk's office and tweak it as needed for budget board.
Yeah, I think two items, and one to pull it out of the sub-allocation back into the larger umbrella,
Mhm.
and then from that umbrella into the specific. Is that what you're thinking?
at the time of the agreements agreed upon.
Yeah, that the agreement would just be drawn from that.
That works.
All right.
So we're moving it, essentially what we'd be doing is moving it from one sub-account to a new sub-account, but we have to
Yeah.
reverse the
It's
entire
just going
process.
backwards
Yeah.
first. Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess if anyone from the clerk's office is watching and has time to work with that for budget board.
We'll get with them.
Thank you.
All right, that was a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, that gets that off the agenda. Now what?
So I wanted to keep all the detention center items together. The things we just discussed are all items that have been previously recommended and authorized by P&G and BOCC. The three remaining items are projects that have not been either moved forward or archived. So we're hoping today to kind of make determinations on all of our pending projects if possible, or where we can on what should or shouldn't be moved forward. So I'll go ahead and present those three and address any questions you guys might have. We can do them one at a time.
These are not previously approved projects, so if we need to do this under a different agenda item, I'm not sure.
No, you're good on this one.
Okay.
So this one was for is for the detention center elevators. This is something that has been a topic of discussion. Since they had originally submitted the proposal, they have had an elevator go down, as you guys are aware. So this would be for the replacement of the elevators in the building to go from the basement through the 13th floor.
And the last time this was presented to P&G, that we were concerned about the number because of the 3.6 was a dated amount. Has there been any updated, or are you gonna work with this?
I'm waiting on a quote from Kone. They were supposed to have it a week ago. I called them this morning. They're supposed to have it to us. As soon as I have it, you will have it. It'll be an updated quote on all 5 elevators.
And if 3.6 only gets you 2 elevators, we'll work with that, or?
We'll see what the quote comes in and then we'll discuss it, okay? I have no idea
Well,
what it should be.
Because I'm almost of the mind just to set this aside. And if you can get 2 elevators out of this, you get 2 elevators out of this.
I'm okay with that. Because if we're actually building a new facility, if we can get by with 2 new elevators on the secure side, I think we can probably do maintenance on the other 2 on the non-secure side.
If that's the, any thoughts amongst the P&G?
I'd like to have all 5 of them, but if this is the money, we'll allocate how we can do so.
My memory's not good. Have we done elevator projects out of ARPA funds?
Yes,
Okay.
we've done one.
I kind of like the thought, Michael, of just saying you get what you get out of that request. But I also don't, I think we set aside the 3.6 and then they present us their invoices or their quotes. Because I don't want to transfer money over and then it's gone. So.
Well, we can either entertain this December 20th, or we can set this aside and allow them to work with elevator money.
Okay. When the quote comes in, it's just gonna be your budgetary number. We have to bid this, put it on the street. So even though,
Have you begun that process yet?
no, we've been waiting on the quote from Kone, so we have a budgetary number to set up that plus specifications to
Well,
go.
then, I think we need to just hold on and not take any action until we've actually got the bids back and they've got a solid number.
Okay?
And that's,
You know, Kone's will be a solid number, but again, as big as that number is, we
well,
need to put this on the street, okay? To make it fair. That's a lot of money that ought to be.
I don't know what purchasing procedures you
You
all
can't,
use,
you
so
can't do that.
we would have to put it on the street.
Yes, and I follow your
Yeah,
procedure, so.
so, yeah, I don't see a need to take any action, given that we don't know what that number is, so.
All right, this item will be looked at again December 20th, hopefully with some numbers.
The next one is for the network infrastructure upgrade. So this is at 1.8. These upgrades include helping with the continuation of remote meetings and addressing some of the network traffic volume and sustaining that. There was also some additional technology that was purchased during COVID to establish these video connections. So this will help with those things as well, preventing the delay in video conferencing and items such as that.
Do you know how this is to be accomplished in terms of, is this something they're planning on doing in-house? Is this a vendor service? How?
I believe their IT guy was here previously, but he's not here today. Is he? Yeah. I am not 100% sure on if it has to go outside or can be done within. The last portion would include like cameras for contact tracing purposes, and that is something you would have to bid out. The other pieces of it, I'm not 100% sure, but the camera piece specifically, they don't own the updated camera, so they'd have to purchase the new cameras.
So we're just working off of
So it looks like
guesstimates?
from what the IT guy gave us, this would help with the load balance circuits, and then there is a service provider that is providing this on a 3-year contract, is what they have an agreement with. It is with Cox Services, would allow it to be managed without any additional FTEs and any ongoing costs. We were told that the department could cover.
I'm okay moving this forward to BOCC as a recommendation if the detention center provides all the necessary documents to justify the number that we have here.
Okay. By that BOCC or prior to them receiving these documents or monies?
At the time that the BOCC would consider the $1.8 million.
Okay.
And that includes anything that would need to go out to bid, or if it's professional service. I realize once it's out the door that they're responsible for any misuse, but given that they have limited ability to pay us back unless they take out an insurance policy on all of these things that they're receiving funds for, we need to be very careful.
Absolutely. And I will be addressed a little bit more when we go through the MOU, but I want to give some context that I think might be helpful as well. We agree. We'd like to do what will happen in the MOU, the projects, if we can all get it lined out. Ideally, it would be lined out per project, so you would know how much funding is going to each specific project, and we would do amendments to it or additions to the agreement as projects maybe increased, or if the amounts change, or if they had a new submission, we would add to the MOU as we go. So to your point, the money wouldn't necessarily go over there right away. It wouldn't go until we have everything in place. So agreed.
That'll be my motion, I guess.
Your motion is to approve this and send it to BOCC?
Recommend it. Yeah. Motion is second for project 10079 in the tune of $1,810,808 with documentation to the BOCC. All those in favor say aye.
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 This is for the COVID-19 amendment. So this is something that you guys have seen before and made an approval on in a similar form. This is for a specific set of time. So this is from July to August. It covers that cost. So this is for the required COVID-19 testing that is going on in the facility. So they have this contracted with Turnkey Health, and the amount each month is about $12,400, a little bit less. So this would be for the 2 months of supplies.
So is this something they anticipate to be ongoing, that they'll continue to come back for, or?
So this is so previously the approved COVID-19 amendment proposal didn't cover this subset of costs, but it did cover the cost into 2023. It covered into June of 2023.
That we recommend BOCC's approval.
Second?
Motion is second to approve 10116 in the amount of $24,784 as a reimbursement. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
So, excuse me. So these are our triage proposals. What I've done here is combine our premium pay asks from departments and our salary and benefit asks from departments. The intent here is that we would approve those as a lump sum and kind of earmark them within the system, that they would be for premium pay or that they would be for salary and benefits. With salary and benefits, since some of them are forward looking, obviously we can't touch those dollars until we get into those fiscal years. But this would at least set the money aside, and the county would know not to allocate it for another purpose. We can change the amounts. You guys can obviously approve whatever number you are most comfortable with, but just kind of so you know how we have it structured. The first one is for premium pay. And so we're making a couple assumptions here based off data we received from the clerk's office. We anticipate a little bit of changes because not all of these employees will end up being eligible due to work from home statuses and things like that. So our first assumption is that the county has 741 eligible employees to receive premium pay. The assumption two is that we'll fund for the period of March 2021 to June of 2022. The max rate of premium pay not to exceed $13 an hour, or the total of not exceeding $25,000 per individual. And we've broken it out into two potential scenarios. If each employee were to receive the full amount of premium pay, the $25,000 amount, you're looking at a number of 17.1. I will note that we're not seeing that in other counties or other cities or departments. We're not seeing people grant out that level of funding. And we're seeing it more used towards other services that could be benefiting the entirety of the county as a whole. We are seeing the monthly stipend approach other places, and this figure is quite a bit less. So the monthly stipend amount would be closer to 7.5. So it'd be $7,558,774.60, making similar assumptions as above. The 741 eligible employees at the threshold amount for 1 month. So we kind of just wanted to get a sense of how much you guys wanted to set aside, and then we can create the rate based off of the amount that is set aside. But we did want to call out, we are seeing it more so as a lower monthly stipend versus using the full allocation.
All right, let me just go down these steps. So county, out of the 741 eligible employees, we're talking about frontline employees that were here from certain dates to certain dates.
Yes.
And then in the scenario of scenario 2, a 1 month stipend, you were taking a snapshot of those 741 employees. Does that include hypothetically Mike Taylor?
No.
Okay. Does that include hypothetically someone that sat on the front line of a clerk's office from those dates?
Yes, if they were in front of individuals providing services, it would include them. We will need to work with departments a little bit. This is the data we got from the clerk's office on what our formula would be for eligible based off the data they have. We will need to work with individual departments to determine who they let work from home, because if somebody worked from home, they won't be eligible for the portion of time that they worked from home.
Now, if that included, let's say that 741 people, if that includes someone that retired, then they lost out. Is
Correct. That is correct.
So that 7.558 would be less than if we went by a monthly stipend. Does the scenario include deputies and detention officers over in juvie?
It does include the Juvenile Bureau and the Sheriff's Department, yes.
And not all departments are here, but does the departments that are here, does a 1 month stipend from between March 21 to June 22 seem as a reasonable dollar amount for those individuals that were on the front line?
The sheriff's office, the application that we submitted was for the full amount for our eligible staff. At the time that we submitted it, which was the original deadline, now I can't remember, was that April 25th? I can't remember when the original deadline was, but we submitted the application at that point in time. There were only 14 employees with the sheriff's office that didn't qualify under one of the eligible qualifications for premium pay, and we submitted it for the full amount, feeling like the risk that our deputies took and continue to take deserves the full amount, not a single month.
As in scenario 1, maximum per employee. Is that what you're referring to?
For our employees, we can't speak for what the process was for other departments.
Understandable.
Equity would seem to be a big issue here, right? If you have similarly situated employees, I'm assuming you're referring to even clerks at the sheriff's office were were submitted at 100%, you feel they should be paid 100%.
They were unable to.
You get into an equity issue if we do one group at X and another at Y. So my concern is one of equity. I'm not, people that were working and they were faced with the same
Sure, absolutely.
potential issues. So I don't want, I for one wouldn't be for splitting it out and saying this group gets 100%, this group gets a 1 month stipend. Whatever it is that we recommend, I think should be uniform across the board. And I'm not saying which way I want to go yet, but I do think we should be cognizant of that.
And we would never say as a department that other departments should be done differently. If they worked, then they would qualify for everything that the legislation allows.
Rick, you get 30 seconds. She yielded 30 seconds to you, so you get 59 seconds.
For the court clerk, I would echo what she's saying,
Okay.
because they were here.
Do you yield the rest of your time then?
Yes.
Oh, good. All right, with that note, this seems like an item that will be continued December 20th.
And with regard to the verification aspect of who worked and when they worked and where they working from home, how will we have assurance that that is accurate?
We are putting our faith in y'all's department heads in being honest in their answering to us. We can provide them a attestation to sign stating that they are ethically claiming to make the statements, but we are relying on your departments.
Because I'm not in the county clerk's payroll department, but I don't believe there was any distinction made at the time that payroll was submitted that Joe was working from home
That's
and
correct.
Michael was in the office.
That's
right?
correct.
So it's going to take some time to work through these.
Yes, that's correct. We had asked the clerk's office if there was a different time code on the time cards for work from home, and there's not. This was unprecedented, so they did not have something like that set up. Who would have expected them to? So there is not a particular way in that mechanism to track it. It's something that could be set up in the future for you guys if y'all wanted to ever do something like that. That would be wise, but we will have to work directly with department heads and take them at their word.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mhm.
So you want to push this to December?
Yeah.
Okay. I agree.
Could I ask, just for the follow-up in December, is there anything more that you would like us to do to prepare for that conversation? Or what we could do
Is-
differently here?
Would the interim period allow you to have some of those discussions to further define what that actual amount might be?
Sure,
Given
we
that
could do that.
people were working from home. I know there were groups that were on a rotational basis. There were some groups that worked for home for,
Okay.
Just
Thinking through what it would take to get to a decision in December.
Yeah, we'll reach out to them.
okay. Thank you.
Are there employees in each department that this applies to, or are there any departments that it doesn't apply to?
I haven't identified a department. Or if they work from home, but at this time we have not identified a department that is ineligible.
Okay.
And I'll just clarify my thoughts as far as scenario 2, a 1 month stipend for someone's annual salary is nothing to. I think the other figure may affect other projects that some offices want to do because there's not money to do them if we're putting the maximum amount to 741 employees.
That's right. And these scenarios are only meant to be benchmarks for you, just to understand some of the ways that we could approach this. There's another model we could use that we've built out that looks at the rate of pay for each employee and gives them an assigned premium pay rate based on that. So it's a more equitable distribution where people making more will get less in premium pay, people making less will get more in premium
I'd
pay.
like to see that.
So there might be a scenario 3 we could look at.
Yep, there could be any number of scenarios. This was just to give you an
Well-
idea of what these look like.
The one you just laid out, I think is interesting.
Yeah.
All right. I'm good with that for now.
I want to call attention that the number in the right-hand corner is not correct. So this is for countywide salary and benefits. This would be lump summing the amount to be earmarked off to the side for salary and benefits. On here, the slide has had a little bit of updating since yesterday, so it's not 100% correct. Within the sheriff's department, what you're seeing on there right now was only for the items that are forward-looking and have not yet been recommended or authorized. We included the general revenue piece from the project number 10043 and 10044 in our new updated number. So there will be 5 total sheriff office items within there, and then there is the juvenile bureau and the detention center as well. The total figure amount, like I said, that is certainly incorrect. If you were to fund each of the 5 categories at 100% is $77,184,341.57. That would be for the entirety of all of that. That would include, as I said, projects from the Sheriff's Office 10043 and 44 that were previously authorized for the special revenue police. If we did not include those 2 projects, the total amount would be $62,292,231.25. We can do this similar as we did to premium pay at any kind of level you guys would like to set aside and work on the justifications from there or the percentages from there. But we wanted to give you kind of the threshold and cap of what is left out there before we are able to go into the community. We just want to know how much dollars we have to work with when we get to community.
Well, for starters, the detention center needs to be separated out from this period. But as I look at, so we're looking at the juvenile bureau, is that for 1 year or is that for over the 3-year window
It is not for the 3-year window. It is just one.
that she requested?
Yes.
Is that for reimbursement or is that for just the next annual year, fiscal year?
It is for the period of July 2022 to June of 2023.
So juvenile, in theory, wouldn't receive any of those funds because the county covered that, right? Is that correct?
Theoretically drop down for reimbursement at some point.
Am I wrong in the assumption that all of these dollars, 2022 to 23, would be just placed in the county's general fund, in essence, creating a reserve until the board determines?
Yeah, our understanding of the current system is they would go into general fund since they are reimbursements and the reimbursements came from general fund, except in the case of the sheriff's office, they do have special revenue pieces of that. So the portion of their special revenue would go back to the sheriff's office like we did before.
But in the out years, those for which we've not yet had an annual budget, the idea would be to supplant what has generally come out of the general fund to go to those entities and hold those dollars aside while utilizing these funds to meet that traditionally budgeted expense, correct?
Once they've come to the general fund, they can be used how the county sees fit for reimbursement.
Right, but if we were looking at setting next year's budget and say the annual amount of salary and benefits is $10 million, and we don't appropriate that because we're going to utilize the ARPA funds, we've essentially set aside $10 million.
Yeah, if that's how you wanted to
is
fund
normally
it.
budgeted for that purpose.
Sure.
Okay.
Item, the sheriff's office, so you do not list project 43 and project 44, so.
That is correct. I have them on my updated slide, and their combined general revenue would be $14,892,110.32 for those two combined projects.
And then also, in a previous P and G, you had referenced sunsetting these dollars to the tune of, it wouldn't necessarily be a max of 18 for year 24 and 18 for the year 25. Is there a magic percentage we could realistically look at? Is it 50% of this dollars?
Yeah, I find it unlikely that we'll get to the 100% threshold as we've previously discussed. So the $77 million number is high. Half of that is probably far more reasonable.
And just to confirm that you've been in those discussions, any thoughts on setting aside 50% versus 18 and 18? And for that matter, 17.
So keeping in mind that the two for us that aren't on there, the general fund portion that aren't on this slide, that are on the updated slide, those are reimbursements. We've worked through with the consultants our portion of that to get above the 50%, because these were time periods during the Omicron variant, during the Delta variant, all those sorts of things, and our employees paid out of special revenue were still responding to COVID in a substantially higher rate. We believe we can make that assertion for the general fund staff as well. We just haven't gotten within and worked all the way through that because it hadn't been approved. Those dollars hadn't been approved yet. But going forward, we do agree that, you know, as COVID and society's response to it in general has improved, that we believe the percentage of time will decrease in the periods going forward. But for the two general fund portions that are reimbursements, we have not worked through that with them, and I think we can still get above the 50% threshold with those.
But those funds, unlike your special revenue funds, where you generate those funds and you are reimbursed, whatever percentage we're ultimately talking about here isn't coming back to the sheriff's department, right?
No, sir, those
It's
periods-
anticipated to go into the general fund
Correct.
to be used for something else.
Absolutely.
And that something else hasn't been defined.
Not by us, no.
And earlier you mentioned a 52 million. What was that again?
So the 62, there was a $62 million number, and that was based off the figures that you see on the board right now. It did not include the 44 and 43, but they
Oh.
should be included.
So
We were
that-
just calling the distinction.
We just need to add a 0 to this number up in the corner. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was off originally, but with including the 44 and 43, the total amount, if you approved everything, is 77.1, a little over 77.1.
So what we're talking about is just creating a reserve fund by means of calling it whatever.
Sure. So the intent here, yes, is that you are bucketing it aside to be used for salary and benefits. If it is not used for that purpose, it could be used for a different project later. If the county had a new submission that they wanted to do or something, those dollars could be used in that way. We'd have to go back through a reallocation process. But this does set these dollars aside for, in this case, the purposes of salary and benefits until otherwise indicated.
Sorry, I misspoke. The reserve fund I was referencing would be a reserve fund in general because we've taken money.
Oh, yes, this would go back to the general fund minus the pieces that'll go to special revenue for the sheriff's office.
And there are no, once this were to occur, there are no conditions upon the money that's freed up of how it's spent, correct?
That is correct.
It loses all color of the law. Okay.
Now that I thought through this, so the detention center request, that would be reimbursement dollars as well.
Yes.
That would actually drop down to Oklahoma County General Fund to cover.
Do you guys pay the detention center salaries?
Well,
Then yes, they would.
yes, essentially we do because they have no means of revenue. So we're providing them a budgetary amount each year. I think, Michael, it's contemplated that those funds, detention center would be held
at the county.
And
Well-
reimburse back to the county. Yeah.
Yeah, my understanding, that was a project to reimburse dollars that have already been spent during that time, so it would be general fund dollars.
Coming back to us,
Yeah.
not making their way. Yeah, I misunderstood you.
Yes, so the payroll for detention center was from January to May of 2022. So it would be a reimbursement.
Do we anticipate more reimbursement numbers from them past May?
Until the portal
Well,
closes
if
on
we're,
Friday.
if
or
we're
Wednesday.
entertaining closing internal portal, I think we're done doing any kind of reimbursement outside of what's already before us. Now, projecting forward, the sheriff's office 17 mil, 18 and 18.9, that includes special funds as well. So outside of this current year we're working in, those 2 future years, are you comfortable with if we set aside half that?
Yes.
Uh, I'd like to see whatever those figures are. Well, if we're going to recess till tomorrow, is this something we can clean up a little bit to see what those numbers look like?
Yeah.
All right, let's entertain that.
Can you break that, in cleaning it up, can you break it down and what would be actual going back to?
I already have it from her. Yes, we can.
And then, I know I'm asking you to look into a crystal ball, but much like when we reimbursed your special revenues, you all presented us with some type of plan that the funds would be utilized for. Have y'all gotten down that road yet?
Yes, I mean, we have thoughts in mind, but until something gets approved, we've not, made anything definitive.
Right, but one of the things that I want to take into consideration when I'm at least making a recommendation to my boss is that we're contemplating future expenses, right?
Yes.
If you design a program that is going to rely on some of these reimbursement funds out of your special revenue, but might later anticipate needing general fund dollars to help accomplish, we need to be aware of that.
Yes. No, none of, keeping in mind that the bulk of our general fund until the last year and a half has only covered salaries and benefits and not any sort of M&O or capital expenses for the sheriff's office. When we look at the reimbursements for special revenue and service fees, those are the sorts of projects that we're looking at, is the M&O and the capital things, and using that to budget in a way that we are unable to currently budget because we live month to month, spending this month what we earned last month in service fees. So this would simply provide us an ability to put together a real forward-looking budget using that pool of money, and planning better for things more effectively and efficiently using the funds that are available in a timely way.
Thanks.
All right, so we're going to review this after it's been cleaned up for tomorrow's docket. Next item, please.
All right. Those were all the hard ones. So these
Promise?
are all, I hope so. These are all projects that you guys have seen before. So these are ones that are still just pending on whether or not we would like to move forward with them or archive them. Words. So we'll just run through them as usual. We have the county assessor's office asking for the Esri enterprise agreement. It's a reimbursement to the general fund of $190,000 per year. It's for 3 years. And then the rest of it would go to the department itself. That has multiple department uses, as we've discussed before. They're laid out how each separate office can make use of the Esri system. So this is also something that we consider an eligible use under effective service delivery because it would enhance both services within the county and for its constituents.
Before we go any further, can you give us a review of what's been allocated, money-wise and what's remaining?
Yes.
Of the total ARPA dollars?
Yeah.
Sure. So what is remaining after everything that's been authorized by BOCC up to this point is $117,670,362.
That's what's remaining, you said?
Right.
The amount that'll cover premium pay, and then the amount that would cover salary and benefits. So just think about that a little bit.
And that's not included, obviously. Okay.
Not to mention consulting fees. Has that been reduced from that figure?
Up to this date, it's included in that.
All right, so then there's an asterisk next to that number. The item before us, we're looking at a scenario of paying this tab over the next 3 years or reimbursing for last year's and the next 2 years.
And then when ARPA is up, and that's why we do have it marked as an ongoing cost, the full cost will come back to the county.
All right, so my understanding is this is an agreement we had with this entity throughout the courthouse annex offices. Any thoughts on this project?
I think it makes sense to reimburse the county for it. We can.
Is that your motion?
Yes, I will move to recommend S3 project to BOCC.
All right, when this project was brought before us, this is an item that's ongoing via general fund anyway? Is that what my understanding is?
Yeah, it'll come back when the contract's up. If you guys would like to continue it, it will have to come back to the general funds.
Well, what I mean is, prior to this being an ARPA project request, this is a contract that we're in
That is my
to
understanding.
the tune of $190,000 a year.
That is my understanding because this is a contract continuance. So based off that, it would be my understanding that it is a program that is already taking place.
What would the amount be if we were to just recommend to the BOCC to fund the amount up to the project allowed through the federal legislation? In other words, 3.5 years or 3 years, whatever that number is. What
so
would that number be?
let me see if I can pull up if I have the contract itself to see how far forward looking it is. So this contract already looks forward looking. It starts in 2022 and projects into 2025. So that covers, it's the 3-year continuance that would cover the 1 million total. It's a $330,000 per year. And about 190 of that is going to the general fund. And then 140 of that is going to the Rebel Fund, REVAL maybe, Rebel Fund. But the 190 is a specific general funds piece.
So part of it goes back to an assessor's special account, special revenue account, and part of it would return to the general fund or not be budgeted out of the general fund. We just pay that portion out of.
Mhm.
Somebody was here. Are there enhancements that we've, to Michael's point, I think you were asking if this was a contract pre-existing. Is that,
Well, and that's my understanding. Some of it's reimbursement. It's been presented to P&G prior. But some of this is reimbursement and then some of it's to pay the tab for the next 2.5 years or whatever we're at.
Correct. Yeah, we have the contract itself in my email. I'm seeing it. So this is something that the county is already paying for per se.
and when you say the county's already paying for it, is it solely out of the special revenue or is there a,
No, because we got those numbers broken down from the assessor's office. They told us that the 190 number would come back to general fund. So it would have had to have been portioned in that way.
Would it be helpful to table this to tomorrow and get some answers maybe from the assessor's office?
That's up to Joe. I'm ready to vote up or down either way.
exactly would we be doing? Are we recommending
Just
funding
to-
this or are we recommending just setting this aside this amount going forward?
Well,
Proving that on an annual basis or what are we
yeah,
thinking?
my understanding with this project, well, with all our projects, it's just, they anticipate these expenditures, so, they were hoping to get it out of ARPA dollars and it's eligible for ARPA. So I guess, just paying the tab, reimburse for what was happening last year and then, pay the tab for the next 2 or 3 years.
So we'd reimburse 190,000 out of the current FY, and then we would pay the contract, much like going forward directly out of the ARPA funds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can structure it in whichever way. But you are the county is already in a contract with them, so if I could make a recommendation to you, you're going to pay for it either way, whether you're paying for it already or you use the ARPA dollars to pay for it. So if that helps think about maybe pushing it forward or not.
And the
It's not a
contract-
new project per se.
And the contract is yearly.
Do what?
The contract is yearly.
Yes.
Yeah,
It is a 3-year continuance. That's why it's 3. So it'll be all together, like it's all paid for together. But they do have the cost broken down per year.
It's not an automatic, it contemplates an annual renewal, but it's not an automatic renewal because the board still has to, because our limitations.
Yeah.
But if this is recommended and then moved on and approved by BOCC, it drops down into an ARPA department fund and then it's paid out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Or I guess if there's a lack of a second, there's also the possibility that this is just archived and not considered.
Yeah, I would recommend either funding or archiving at this point. It has been seen by the board several times now, so if it's not something you feel comfortable moving forward with, I wouldn't keep continuing to discuss it.
Draw my motion.
All right, then other action would be archiving this item. I move to archive this item. But, so I guess it doesn't matter. And not seeing a second for my archive, I guess this item is out in limbo. Next item.
This is from the engineering's office. This is for the stormwater master drainage plan. So this would evaluate the unincorporated portions of the county and serve for a guide for future development purposes. It would be good for 30 years.
Outside of a master drainage plan, is there actually any work done?
In this particular one, it does just create the plan itself. There is another request related to the culvert inventory. If you did one, I would do both.
And how would that not be part of the master drainage plan? Or he's just wanting to inventory
So
those
the
items?
culvert, this is for the culvert inventory. So this would help with managing the infrastructure of the deteriorating culverts and drainage structures that leads to some of the, this would help them lead to the proper inventory of knowing where they're each at to help with predicting remaining life on the underlying pipelines and culverts remaining. This would put you ahead in knowing if there was going to be a failure somewhere within the culvert system.
Have you all looked at infrastructure bill and things coming down the pike with infrastructure bill and if that could fall into?
So there's a potential eligible use for these water categories to fall within the infrastructure IIJA, but that is all going to be grant related. It won't drop down the way ARPA did, where every county gets an allocation. It's something that you will have to submit a grant proposal for, and you may or may not get that funding.
Can you remind us, I know we've talked about this quite a bit, where these numbers were derived from?
We got these from the office.
Do you recall how they generated these numbers?
I can see if it's in the original submission, if it has any further detail. I do not have further detail on that figure.
Chantel, is that you out there? On these two, have you had any conversations with Stacy about how he intends to?
No, I have no knowledge of these projects.
Because I would assume we would do some kind of RFQ or RFP and
To bring on a
at some
consultant
point.
of some kind. No, that discussion hasn't occurred.
The project is less we can always pull the dollars back like we could with any other project. And we can work with Chantel and with the engineering's office if this were something you wanted to move forward with, to make sure they're using the most appropriate quote we would get. This is just an estimate. I'm not quite sure how he derived the number, but it is the number we were provided.
Joe, did you have those questions of Stacy that he might be able to address for you?
Oh, there he is. Hi, Stacy. My question was how you arrived at the 3 million figure and the 1.5 million in the other request you have?
Oh, they're planning estimates. We know how many floodplains that we have within the county. So how many would have to be studied. And the average cost of studying a floodplain, if I'm talking to our consulting industry. So they're pretty ballpark. But the master drainage plan, I don't think you should do that right now. Let's archive that. But the culvert inventory, we don't even know how many culverts we have out there. And we really need that inventory, I think. And the discussions I've had with each of the offices is you thought about doing it yourself with your own forces, which is one way to get it done. Some of your offices have actually started that process, but they gave up pretty quick because of some of the problems they run into are pretty overwhelming.
And in that culvert study, I think I asked you, and I think the answer was no. But we pay for that pavement management system.
Right, and we didn't pick up the culverts under that process.
That could have been done?
No.
Okay, it wasn't a service that they offered that we just didn't elect to do.
Correct. Yeah, it just wasn't a service in the way they do things.
If we go ahead and move forward with the culvert study, would that data be something that could populate our pavement management system so that we basically have a one-stop shop because if I recall correctly, the plan was if we were going to do it manually, if you will, we were going to populate that information into pavement management.
If I can populate it in there, I will. I don't know if there's any available fields to store it, that sort of thing, but certainly that's the best thing. It'd be part of a GIS system. I'd like to get the pavement management and the inventory over into a GIS layer. That stuff's possible, but it's,
Does the 1.5 number, is that inclusive of the smaller jurisdictions that we also serve, those under 5,000?
Yeah, because those are really our roads.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you're recommending that we archive 10006?
Yes.
That's my motion, Tom.
I'll second.
We're going to archive project 1006 in the amount of $3 million. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Okay.
But I would recommend that we move forward with the 10068, unless you know something from your own crews, because I don't think they really want to tackle that.
Is this just for the unincorporated areas, or does it include?
No, it's unincorporated, and which includes our small cities under 5,000, but that's all.
Okay. And ODOT doesn't do something like this?
For their own roads, they do, but not for ours.
Okay. I will move that we recommend to the BOCC the approval of item 10068 in an amount not to exceed $1.5 million.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve and recommend 10068. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you, Stacy.
All right.
Item 10033, does that include the 2.3 estimated dollars for asbestos abatement?
No. If we include the asbestos abatement, it takes it to 7.3.
If we move forward with this project, that's my suggestion, is to add that estimated amount for abatement. And this $5 million figure, did Rick leave? Huh, he always never makes it to his project. It's past his lunchtime. I would, there's been debate on if 5 million covers the fourth floor or if it doesn't, back and forth, but it may be one of those scenarios of build it out until you run out of money. I don't know. But I'm only comfortable, this project started at 4.8, went up to 8.4. I see it went back down to 5, and then if you include the 2.3 for asbestos abatement, surely that would cover the remodel. Was that a number that they were gonna also utilize to move back and forth to their temporary homes?
Yes, it includes remodeling, communications, relocation, and rent.
And with that, I'm willing to move recommendation of project 10033 to the BOCC to the point of $7.3 million.
One, couple questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
That figure covers, what did you say it covers?
It will cover remodeling, the cost of communication system setup, relocation, and rent.
So is architect and engineering a part of that number?
The current square foot design is included in that number. This is the figure that so the 8.4 figure was the number we were originally given from the clerk's office themselves. We were able to bring this figure down a little bit after speaking with facilities on the cost of the remodel.
Wouldn't a project of this size require engineering and architecture fees? So Michael's number is going to go up, right?
Well, I'm just going based off of what we just completed on the 6th floor that we did the walkthrough yesterday, what that cost, including engineering fees. If you double the number for what we did on 6 to cover the inflation that we're seeing right now and the supply chain problems, you're pretty close to that number. And then, of course, the asbestos adds another 2.3 that we didn't have to deal with on 6 this time. So I don't think the number is that bad of a number, but what you're going to get is probably the same level of quality that you have on 6. If you're trying for a higher level of quality, you're going to have to raise the number. Higher appointments cost more money. So,
and then what is the likelihood of getting it designed, out to bid, and constructed in the remaining time frame? It's a question I ask about all of our projects because we're running up against some deadlines.
I agree, and as we talked on infrastructure, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about being able to get it designed and encumbered by the 2024 deadline. Our difficulty is going to be getting it built out and ribbons cut, paid off by the 2026 deadline. So the more projects we take on, the more contractors we're going to need, the more subs we're going to need. We got to watch that pretty close and be careful that we can really get it all done. So the list we had in infrastructure the other day, I feel like we can get it done. As we keep adding projects, it is a serious question.
What is the completed time frame? The projects have to be completed by when?
You can no longer use ARPA funds after December 31st, 2026.
Of when? And in the event that you have a project that is partially complete and you hit that deadline, has Treasury provided any type of guidance as to what their plan is? Have they indicated one way or the other whether they're going to seek to recover the cost that was expended?
No, the remaining costs would just fall to the county. They're not going to claw back the dollars.
They will not claw back.
Yeah, but the remaining costs for that project will fall to the county.
And
so the challenge with this one that maybe scares me a little bit is the asbestos piece. I remember when we did the 6th floor, that was about a 1 year time period from when they started to clear all that asbestos out of there. So you're adding a year to your construction schedule when you touch that.
Okay, so calendar year 2023, surely we can get some architect decisions made, people moved.
Get it all designed, I
A
agree.
full calendar year gets us to mid, for asbestos removal, gets us to mid 2024.
And that'll take a year.
So you're saying that they can't get some paint and wood and sheetrock and new HVAC up in the calendar year of 2025 and calendar year of 2026?
Yeah, that's doable, but the number of contractors that's going to be available is what's up in the air. Because when we looked at this metro area, the city's putting 3.6 billion on the street in that same time frame. Then you got Tulsa, Dallas, Wichita, different areas with billions of dollars. There's only so many contractors. And I think I said it on the Horseshoe in the commissioners meeting. There's going to be two types of entities: those with contractors and those without. So I'm not telling you not to do projects. I actually want to do some projects, and I think we need to add a couple more, but don't add a dozen more.
And that gets to something I've been talking about, Stacy, right? Where we can bundle projects that we have the engineering done and we're ready to go out to bid on those. If we can bundle those
To one contractor.
to one contractor, I
That's
think
a smart strategy.
I think we have the ability to maybe get somebody that'll come and stay, as opposed to what we've typically had, which is
we're the filler.
We're a filler,
Right.
right?
So for perspective, Michael, the 6th floor, what you call drywall and paint and wood, is going to end up taking 10 months for that piece of it. So I'd hope the 4th floor could be done in that same, 10, 12-month period. So yeah, I think it's going to fit in 2026 inside. But we've got to get on with it. We can't burn the
All right.
clock.
And was this item included the 20% that we've done before? Anybody give me the math of that? And 2.3, I think, was the current going rate for abatement of that size.
Yeah, 2.3 is the number I have for the asbestos. Steven's gonna get our 20% number.
So if I did a motion on this, I need to amend that motion. Did I?
Oh, okay. And that's just the with 20% will be 6 million, not including the 2.3.
Probably include 20% on the asbestos and be safe.
Yeah, give me 20% on the asbestos as well.
So do it on the 7.3.
And so my amended motion will be, drum roll, please.
$8,760,000.
Okay, that's my amended motion for item 10033.
Just to make sure that includes any engineering and architecture, asbestos abatement, anticipated construction costs, anticipated relocation costs, and rent going forward. Are there other floors in this building that are in your
there's a project for the assessor, and the math and the calendar window that they talk about for asbestos abatement, I wouldn't take that to Vegas for any kind of odds to get down to the third floor with the amount of time they're saying for the fourth floor.
Let's see if I can. Yes, so this is the third floor. They're assuming at 1,500 or 15,000 square feet, it's $240 a square foot. This does not include the asbestos abatement that I'm aware of. And they had not indicated when I last asked them if they had planned with engineering or facilities on how their office and the fourth floor would both be completed in order to move each individual and things like that. There was not a plan in place at that time.
And the understanding with the abatement was designed of clearing out the whole floor. Third floor is shared by treasurer's office. There hadn't even been any discussions with that department on whether or not they would consider being moved for a period of time to get their asbestos abated. So I guess maybe in that sense, maybe this may be brought up in December meeting with discussions. I don't have a problem with talking to Butch about the what ifs. But if we're talking about a 2-year window for the fourth floor, that gets us to December of 24 into 25.
If we're considering, we have a request for another floor, it sounds like you're on the track, maybe I'm not understanding correctly, of completing one before we move to the other. Given what Stacy's talked to us about, perhaps economy of scale, I would consider putting them out as one project.
Well, it's about moving 2 floors worth of people into 1 floor's worth of space that I think we have available to move people into. And I understand the bring them into one project. It's a matter of then do we really have the time to accomplish all that? Or in long-range planning, county budgets in the future, if we had a comprehensive plan to work the annex. We've been working on various floors. My understanding is we may or may not have abated some areas that we've remodeled. That's aside. Anyway, if 3 and 4, my understanding was 4 previous elected officials said, no, don't touch my floor. And that's primarily one of the reasons that project was before us today, or has been before us. If it's a continuation of comprehensive updating of this annex, I don't know where assessor's office and or treasurer's office was in that overall plan. But I guess that would be the $20 question on if we went the next step and remodeled the whole of the third floor. How's that displace people and when does it displace people?
Well, and keep in mind, our data center's on the third floor, which
Personally, I believe both projects could probably be completed. I don't know that we'd want to bid that and have the contractors messing around with 2 floors at one time.
I think there was an original motion on this one.
what?
What was that figure you came up? Take it, someone give me a second. All right. Any other discussion on project 10033?
How quickly, Stacy, will y'all get started? Design, getting everything out.
We have an existing contract for architectural services in this building that I would probably just bring an amendment to said contract. I could do that on Monday and get that particular architect started before the end of the year on design. So pretty quick on if you're okay with amending an original contract and not going. We've had this discussion, do we amend some of our original contracts or do we go back out on the street to get some transparency because it's an ARPA program? If you want to do that and get Chantel involved in interviews and so forth, you're going to add another probably couple months. But certainly early spring, we could be under design or we could be designed by the end of the calendar year here, depending on which way we go with that decision on vendor.
Do you all have a recommendation in order to comply with
As long as the current contract meets the purchasing
the Brooks?
agreements, it should be okay. We'll want to double verify.
Is that an accurate statement?
We didn't get small under federal regulations,
So we need to go out.
which is in play. Those bids open next week for architect and engineers. So hopefully his timeline will be less if we go ahead and do interviews again.
Yeah, so what you're talking about, it would be from a pre-approved list, interviewing 3 or 4 or however many, and if they've checked all the boxes in terms of federal requirements, we could award and move quickly. Yeah, so it wouldn't be a separate bid process or request for qualifications because of that pre-approved list. Okay.
That's in process. That is in process now.
All right, so that takes off the amendment aspect because that was done prior to you revamping. Okay. All right. Okay.
All right,
So we know which way we're headed there.
we have a motion second for item 10033 to be recommended to the BOCC. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye. And that was in the amount of, for the record?
8,760,000. 8,760,000.
Thank you. Not to exceed, right?
Not to exceed.
The next item is from the court clerk's office as well. This was for the jury pavilion we've discussed previously. This would be for the outdoor space.
Constructed in the alley between the annex and the courthouse. And this is an accurate figure, or do we need to add the 20% to it as well?
I would be consistent. If you're gonna add 20% to all the other ones, I would go ahead and do it on this one as well. We didn't preemptively do that because we wanted to get y'all's input, but on the construction, that is what you have done thus far, so I would probably go ahead and do so.
And Stacy, kind of the same questions in terms of design, pavilion. What exactly are we talking about?
I'm not familiar with this project at all. As you know, I've been talking with the court clerk about their use of the tunnel for their jury days, especially when inclement weather. Trying to incorporate that into our front entrance project, which the front entrance is going to get quite a bit bigger for staging. And I guess this would be additional staging in the alley.
I think this is after they got their pools together, kind of that intervening period between them going over the courthouse. But I can't recall. At one point, you might remember, Michael, are we talking about an awning? Are we talking about an actual
I've heard
pavilion type
I've heard both.
4
So
walls?
And I don't know anything about it. So.
maybe for our recess meeting in the morning, we could get somebody from the court clerk to.
And the reason I'm asking, if it's something that would require some substantial work in the alleyway in terms of it's going to have a roof and 4 sides to it, what utility issues might we have? We've got a lot of utilities out there.
And that's, we bring cranes back there to do projects. I
and-
mean,
And would utility relocation be necessary, et cetera? Do we know? I'd hate to get started on something and then, oh, by the way,
yeah, I don't know a lot about this particular request.
do you mind to try to find out a little bit?
Yeah, I'll try, and hopefully they can, like I said, be here tomorrow too to tell you what their vision is.
I just envisioned Milwaukee Brewers baseball stadium. It retracts for sunny days and then closes up on.
Nice.
That might be a little bit more than 20%. Chantel, work on that.
This one is from the county clerk's office for meeting room upgrades. Part of this would be a reimbursement to the general fund and then to the tune of $28,870. The office expanded their audio and video capabilities for public meetings and access for remoting into meetings as constituents and things like that. So this covers the cost of those enhancements and purchases of equipment that it has already taken place.
Personally, I'd archive this. Move to archive. Motion is second to archive. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
So we've already done the culvert inventory that was recommended. Next is from Social Services Department. This is for the Homeless Services Trailer. This would actually bring this service to the Social Services Department to help operate and run. So the trailer would provide laundry services to the unhoused population.
Do we have a vehicle to tow this trailer?
It would be a driving like vehicle, kind of like a bus, like a big bus.
Oh, and not necessarily a trailer.
Right.
Like a church van transport with washer and dryer in it?
It's quite large is my understanding, kind of like not quite the size of a charter bus, but that's kind of what I visualized when we've been discussing it.
Move we recommend 10106 to BOCC for approval.
And we'll update the word trailer to be more of a actual vehicle that can get them there.
Yes, we can update that.
I'd hate to have to get my horses out. I second that. So we've got a motion to recommend 10106. All those in favor say aye.
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 The next one is from Benefits and Retirement Department. They are requesting funding for laptops to help with remote work.
Benefits and retirement, and that's, $3 million laptops?
I was gonna say, I think there's an extra zero on there. It should be 3,600. It would be $1,200 per laptop. Is that correct? That's what we have. It's our understanding they originally took their laptop request, because it's 3 laptops. They originally took their request to BET, and BET told them to come through the system first, is our understanding.
I know we're asking you to do a lot for potentially tomorrow, but I'd like our IT department to weigh in on $3,600 for 3 laptops. I know that
Sure.
maybe we could do better.
We'll bump that to tomorrow.
Sounds good. I believe, based off the information I had, this is like, they got the number from like maybe looking on Amazon. I can verify that though.
Well, especially if it was that original figure up there.
So the next one is for benefits and retirements, medical claims. So we had the 2 different numbers on there because there were different projections that we had used originally. And you guys have previously approved a couple for monthly amounts. So the total recommended amount with with us taking an average of about $234,000, 326,600, and multiplying that by 28 remaining months of ARPA eligible use is where we get the 6.5 figure.
Move that we recommend the BOCC set aside for project 10113 benefits and retirement an amount not to exceed $6,568,48.28.
Second?
Motion is second to recommend to BOCC project 10113. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
This brings us back to the assessor's third floor remodel.
And that is with or without 20%. That's just their half of the floor.
Correct.
I say
Without-
half. That's probably actually, they got some of the south side. Are we talking a third, if even that? And kind of along with the discussion previously, asbestos abatement, my understanding that 2.3 was based on a whole floor footprint. I'm not sure if at that point in time, if Butch was willing to move his folks temporarily, or if that was even in the plans. Maybe that's something that between now and tomorrow's recess, someone can chat with him, which I will go chat with, assuming he's in the building.
Sounds good.
Any other thoughts on that one, or just move it to tomorrow? Good enough? All right.
Sounds good. This is for the sheriff's office. This would be an updated camera system, including contact tracing services.
That's why Captain Baston's here. All right, those are accurate and current numbers, Captain? And that covers the courthouse, annex, and metro? Oh, ICB, yeah, of course. Any questions on this subject matter?
Because this covers the trust, I think we should break it out. The PBA being the trust, right?
Oh,
We need to.
Oh,
we
of
need to
course.
treat the PBA in a similar manner as the others, so we would need to break this out.
Okay.
Have a cost center for, what is it, Stace? Yeah. We just create a ARPA PBA, and we'll have to do the agreement, even though it's the same three people. We'll need to do an agreement there.
Okay.
So, move that we recommend to the BOCC number 10117 in an amount of $1,076,209.25 to be broken into two separate pieces. One for Oklahoma County owned buildings in the amount of $583,951.24. The second part of that, establishing a cost center for the Public Building Authority owned buildings in the amount of $492,258.01, which we would need a corresponding agreement.
Still with us? All right, I have a motion and second. Project 10117, update camera systems and access control for contact tracing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
All right, this is for the county courthouse elevator modernization project. So this is replacing the courthouse jail elevator specifically. Hasn't this already been done?
Pardon?
Hasn't this already been done?
They did the three main, they're in the process of doing the three main elevators in the courthouse. This is for the one that's specifically for the upper floors for the jail and the DOs to move individuals for court.
That's correct. It's the specifically keyed one, is my understanding.
And whatever time this gets processed, it will be needed. It's needed now. I will move to recommend item 10119.
Do we need the 20% or is this inclusive of 20?
It is not inclusive of 20%.
So
This
260.
was a recent number he came up with though, right?
It was, yes. The elevator figures we got the last time we were in town are all at 1.3 per elevator.
Do you anticipate a jump? I guess amend my motion to include 20% just in case.
Second.
A motion is second for 10119 at 1.3 million plus 20%, which is? Is the total amount for the not to exceed 1.56. Oh, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Yes.
Okay, the next one is also related to elevators. This is for the county annex building specifically. So this will replace the annex elevators, 5 total.
We also have an agreement with the city to get TIF reimbursement on this project. Can you use this for your front funding and then get it still reimbursed? It's a question, I don't know.
So we can't have a duplication of benefits, but we can have a portion of it paid for from one subset of money and one from.
Cities is a reimbursement, so they don't fund anything.
Well, with that, do we have money in place to start this project?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of a seed budget to get that TIF started. We haven't decided which one of the, I think, 4 projects we have in there that we're going to go with first. And then as you get one reimbursed, you start the next one.
What are your other projects on that?
The ICB is in there, and these elevators, and I think some of the security projects that we've been talking about.
So within the TIF agreement, if we did not use TIF monies for elevators, can it be utilized for the other portions?
Yes, and we go back to the city and try to add one of our
All right.
next in line
Well,
projects.
Instead of mixing or trying to do that, I think we'd want to do it all under ARPA.
Do you want to add 20% on this as well?
If we move forward with it, I believe so. And since I've been the mover of elevators, I'll do that as well. With the, what's the number?
One.
Say that one more time. All right, I move to recommend to the BOCC item 10120 $6,422,020.
Stacy, what did we just spend on the elevators in this building, and what was that project? If I'm remembering, I thought it was to extend the life and.
Yeah, Keith did a kind of a maintenance kind of a project, was it 4 or 5 years ago? A couple $100,000 to extend their life.
And then we dumped COVID CARES dollars into it to do some mitigation efforts in the elevators. Is that correct?
I don't recall that.
I believe there's a sign on the elevator, if I remember.
Okay, but I think he turned this in because they really do need to be done going forward, and that's a much bigger number than I was dealing with when I was working with the city on a program. So I think if it's really going to cost that, you probably ought to pay for it through ARPA.
Because of the public safety.
All right, we got a motion and a second on project 10120, Annex Elevator Modernization. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you.
There are only 3 projects left, and they are also all related to elevators. The difference being the remaining projects are through PBA, or they're the garages across the street. So something to be aware of in these instances, these entities will become a subrecipient in allocating funds in this way. I would recommend against it for just specifically for elevator renovations, especially in the parking garages. Using them in the public owned space here because we're providing public services and things like that. It is a much more recommended use of funds through final rule. I would not recommend the next 3. I just personally wanted to call that out to you guys from our assessments, but it's still y'all's decision to make.
Okay. Go over that again for me. Why you wouldn't?
So these become a subrecipient. So you're basically paying for maintenance and operation through a subrecipient piece at that point.
Right.
And
like any other trust, so the detention center, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So because the county building provides county services and things of that nature, you have constituencies consistently coming in and out of the facility. Updating the use of those elevators is a public safety concern and also helps enhance public services as people are not waiting in the lobbies, as they're not waiting in the elevators themselves. Because the county is providing services in these buildings. The county is less so providing services through the parking garages. People have to pay to park in a parking garage and things of those natures. So this one would be for the ICB building, and then the first one would be for the Metro 1 garage, and then the last one is for the Metro 2 garage.
And it's both elevators and ICB?
Yes.
And that, okay, I heard parking garages, so ICB building, you're still saying the same? Even though that we have county departments over there and we're doing a service for constituents in that building.
If you would like to do it, you can. We are just recommending against through it being a PBA property and the subrecipient piece. We are just recommending against.
Earlier, I believe, didn't we consider some things that were for PBA properties?
I don't believe we've considered other elevators for the PBA properties.
No, but, and I appreciate your guidance, warning. There's a couple of things. How much total are we talking about among the parking garage and the ICB?
So this figure is 1.6. The next 2 are also 1.6. So each of the following 3 projects is totaling at 1.6. And Additionally, something that Keith drew our attention to related to the elevator had to do with the concern about being able to actually bring enough vendors in to do the service replacements on the elevators. He had also recommended not funding all of them at one time because of the potential inability to get someone to be able to come fulfill the contract.
Okay. Which I appreciate. Keep doing that as well. Here's where I'm inclined to go on this, even given your warning. Although that parking garage out there serves some people who don't have to be in this building, generally speaking, that parking garage services those who have to come to this building. So in terms of providing a public service, I'm comfortable there. As Michael was pointing out, I'm very comfortable with the ICB aspect of this, given that we have the drug court office over there, we have our court services office over there. Those people that are generally required by a judge to report to that building. Right now, the public defender is located there. Now that will be gone shortly. Our office is located there. We'll be moving. However, I think part of that space is contemplated as some swing space in the event some of these other projects go forward, which would again be the public. I'm very comfortable with the ICB elevators from that aspect. I don't know that it would harm anything to go ahead and set the money aside, just kind of, and then get some additional guidance from Keith as to, you know, maybe the elevators in the parking garage, is it really doable, et cetera, like you were mentioning. But I do think ICB should be a part of the equation. So do you want to take them as one, as what would it be, 4.8 million?
Kind of lump these three together since they'll be going to the trust.
Yeah, to set aside
Yeah.
4.8 million for potential elevator projects in PBA. Not necessarily green lighting the projects, just setting the money aside. So I guess the motion would be to recommend to the BOCC that we set aside 4.8 million for potential elevator projects in PBA properties.
And the other two project numbers involved besides this one?
10122 and 10123.
I will second that motion. Per Joe's motion and second, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Okay.
And-
That is everything that wasn't previously unaddressed.
Oh, good. And then there's about 3 items we're going to review tomorrow at our recess time. Any other items before us today?
Only the compliance framework if you guys would like to review that today. If not, we can address it tomorrow.
At this point, I'm ready to address it tomorrow.
For tomorrow, can you update us on the approved and recommended totals so we
Yes.
have an idea of what? Okay, thank you.
And could we also just reach out to those departments that will be discussed tomorrow? Make sure that we have somebody here. From
Yeah,
them.
absolutely.
I got to add something to the list. That includes estimated payments to consultants. That needs to be figured into that figure as well. Seeing no further, do we entertain a motion to recess at what point tomorrow? Has this room got anything going on? Just something, oh, thanks for reminding me. Before we go entertain a time for tomorrow, I need to go to item 2, discuss some possible action regarding the regular scheduled set of meetings for 2023. which are attached, and if I can find them, appear to be approximately the second Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. in this room.
Approval.
One second.
I have a motion second for 2023 schedule. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
When are y'all getting out of here tomorrow? Okay, so you have a little bit of flexibility? Okay. Are you guys available at 9 a.m.?
Oh, man, I was gonna get my hair done. Let me see here. 9 a.m.'s fine with me.
9:30, is that possible?
Oh, I meant 9:30. Is that gonna affect your afternoon jog or anything?
You just might end up with Mr. Compton.
So let me rethink this then.
No, I'm kidding. 9:30 is good.
Oh, phew. All right, I think I have a motion to recess till tomorrow at 9:30. Motion button. I need somebody. And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
See you at 9:30 with those other departments. Thank you.